And if you are watching today, you will see that I am not alone in the studio. Today I am joined by Representative Angela Cockerham. She has served as a House member for over 16 years, and while we'll get into that, she's also a working lawyer and a public servant outside of the legislature as well. So welcome, Angela.
Thank you, Rebecca.
And we picked October for a specific reason to kick off the first week, because one of the many things that you are into or advocating for is the fact that it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Yes, and so we thought that this would be a great time, you and I, to advocate for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I also thought it would be a good time, too, to mention domestic violence, because, you know, we don't want to forget the purple. We want to mention the purple as well as the pink. And so we thought this would be a great time to mention both of those organizations and how important this month is.
And to dive into your love of public service, which goes far beyond just what you do in the legislature. So let's just start. You are born and raised Mississippian.
Of
or maybe
course.
not born, but maybe raised Mississippian. There in Amite County.
Born in Jackson.
Born
raised
in Jackson.
in Amite County. Yes.
And educated in Clinton, and I can't think of the county that's in, but...
No, educated in Amite County schools.
And then you went to law school at MC Law?
No, law professor at MC. So went to Jackson State for undergrad. And then after leaving Jackson State, went to Loyola for law school.
All right. And now you're a professor at MC. You've been busy. Let's just put it that way. And up to some good things. Okay, let's talk about, though, your law degree, because I think it's cool. So how did you get into or inspired by law?
So ever since I was little, I have always, I don't want to use the word argued, but advocated is probably the better word. Always been a big advocate. And so growing up in rural Amite County, I get together with my cousins and we talk and we be outside playing. And I was always just a big advocate. And I was the youngest, one of the younger cousins. And so when you have big cousins like that and you're growing up in my family, you have to be pretty vocal. And so I learned at an early age to kind of speak up for myself, but not just for myself, but also others as well. And my parents, too, a huge influence. I always tell the story when I was growing up. You know, my parents, they always wanted, when we always had dinner together every night. My parents always said, when you come to the dinner table, have a current event that we were going to discuss. And so my brother had his special interests. I had my special interests, and my special interests I came to learn over the years just by us sitting around the dinner table centered around law. And so whenever we sit down to eat, you know, my brothers would be like, oh, we know what Angie's going to talk about. You know, my family call me Angie. We know what Angie's going to talk about. And, you know, my brothers would kind of roll their head. But when it got around to talk about my particular interest around the dinner table, everybody would jump in. And we did that for each person around the dinner table. And that helped me also with listening skills to learn it's just not about Angela, but also to listen to what others have to say and what their interests are.
And I would assume, too, to get your brothers interested in things that maybe you're interested in, or at least pitch the ideas of, hey, you should care what Angie brings to the table, because this is why. Who was the first to maybe sow the seed for you that law school would be a good, next step in terms of furthering your education, or did you just choose that?
I just chose that. I chose that. I do have two attorneys who are in my family. So I have an aunt who's an attorney. I have an uncle who's an attorney. So I chose that. When I got to Jackson State, my major initially was criminal justice. And then I also had an undergrad in education because, as you can see, I love to teach. I was a Sunday school teacher, and then also, adjunct professor at MC Law. So I knew that I wanted to have some training in teaching. My dad's a teacher. My mom was my first Sunday school teacher. So after that, I was like, okay, it's time to take the LSAT, Angela. Let's do this. And that's what I did. I took the LSAT and went for it.
Well, I think so much of being a good advocate is also being a good teacher, because it's one thing just to scream for the things that you think are important or that you would like, but it's another thing to be able to help break it down and then teach the people that you are trying to reach. Either you're trying to help or trying to educate, in that sort of teachable way to be more impactful. I think that's a great combination of skills that you have as a lawyer and then also as a legislator. Okay, so you had the opportunity, though. I mean, you graduate from law school. You went, you got out of Amite County, big cities for education. You chose, Angela, to come back and to create a practice and an impact in a more rural town here in Mississippi. Why was that?
Because I wanted to help. I wanted to serve. For me, it's that aspect of also always serving. And I can remember when I was growing up, I could see that modeled. I saw that modeled in my family. I saw that modeled in my church. I saw that modeled in my community. And I wanted to give back. And so having had that experience of gone away to Jackson State, gone away to Loyola, and then after some years, then going away to Massachusetts because I got an MA in international relations, I knew that I wanted to take all of that, everything that I had learned, and bring it back to my home area, to a rural area. That's why I'm such a big advocate about brain drain here in the state of Mississippi, because we've got such great institutions here, whether it's community college or vocational institutions. Our institutions of IHL are absolutely fabulous. And I want to make sure for those who are in school and they're like, okay, well, what am I going to do? And, are there any opportunities here? We want to make sure that there are opportunities that are available. And for me, it was a matter of when I graduated from law school, okay, I want to come back home and practice here because I saw a need, one, but also I just did not want to leave Mississippi because I thought it was a great place to live, and it still is.
So you moved back to Amite County. Now you have all the law degrees. You're ready to sort of practice. Where do you find your footing in sort of helping those in a small town? Because there's not probably many practicing lawyers in the smaller communities, as you may would find in, your larger, especially your capital city.
Well, actually, there were a lot of lawyers in Pike. There were lawyers in Amite, and all of them served as fantastic mentors for me. There were lawyers in Wilkinson County. There are a lot of lawyers who are in Adams. They're not in your traditional firms. They have their solo practices. And what I found as I began to practice over the years is that there is great congeniality between all of us. I mean, we're colleagues. It's nothing like walking into a courthouse back home and I get to see these lawyers. They've been practicing. When I first started, they had been practicing years before me, but through the years since I've been practicing, we've developed great relationships. They go out of their way to help. Even in going to some of the larger cities here and working with some of the firms, it's the same thing. So I think here in the state of Mississippi, we have a great legal community.
You don't hear that often, but that's definitely happy. I mean, it's good to sort of hear. And once you get down and sort of look at it, I mean, that is what makes Mississippi great, is we all share resources. We all, have that sort of hospitality idea of we're in it together, the greater good. And I think it happens more than we give it credit for. And I have to say, we really shy away from politics here on good things, but that is one thing our legislator still does fairly well at certain things, right, is coming together and working on topics, across sort of the aisle. So Angela, your career, professional career, took you in the direction of being, being in the legislature. Did you know that from the get-go that that's where you would end up? Did your heart know that you were being pulled that way, or did you sort of get sucked into it just because, of certain circumstances? Actually, that is a good way to pause and leave you hanging, and we've got more coming up next year on Good Things with Representative Angela Cockerham. out more. We're finding out more about Representative Angela Cockerham, who represents the 96th District for the last 16 years. But that's not all she does. She is an active lawyer and advocate in her own community, which we talk about visiting Mississippi all the time here, Angela, and you're from Southwest Mississippi, specifically Amite County. What you love most about your part, your neck of the woods, as they would say?
What do I love most about it?
Yeah.
The one word you just said, the love that we have for each other, the food. It's a spirit and a vibe that we have, and everyone knows everyone, and it's community oriented. It's just beautiful. One of my colleagues in the House, Representative Sam Mims, calls it God's country. And so it's just this feeling that you get when you're there. And one of the things that I love is that everybody goes out of their way to help somebody, especially, I think that was really most exhibited just recently during Ida, because we got hit.
Which I don't think many understand how impacted Southwest Mississippi was by Ida. I think some of us took it for granted that our lights and stuff came back on fairly quickly, but we had a call, I can't remember, a few weeks or a few days after, you were still struggling to just get electricity back.
I was, and thank God we got electricity back, and I'm so grateful for, all the agencies, for the counties, for everyone jumping in to help. And so that's what I love about Southwest Mississippi.
So you have to love it to be in the legislature for 16 years and to represent your district. I can say that, right, from where I sit. So how did you find your way, Angela? It sounds like from listening to everything from your education choice of a lawyer, from the way your family sort of raised you to be inquisitive and, advocating for your family members to, within your own family unit, just sort of trajectory you right into public service, of the ultimate kind, which is in the legislature. So when did you finally realize it was time for you to maybe take that step?
So, Rebecca, I always knew that I wanted to be involved in the legislature or some ultimate form of public service from a very young age. And that, again, goes back to those nightly dinner meetings. And I tell you, and I thought about this at the break when you asked, when did I really know? What sparked it for me one summer, and I think I probably was in the 5th grade, my parents had this huge garden, and they were like, you got to come out and work the garden. And I was like, but I had been seeing on the news that they were going to have the Iran-Contra hearings. And I asked my parents, I was like, let me watch the Iran-Contra hearings. Because
that's what every 5th grader, 10-year-old is saying.
And my mom, I remember my mom saying, if you watch these hearings, you got to tell us everything because, your brother is going to be out here, working with us. And I was like, I will. So I would go out there a few hours with them, and then I'd come back in and watch the Iran-Contra hearings. And it's giving me chills now just to think about it. But that was, for me, like an intersection of the law as well. Because you see these dynamic lawyers making all these hearings, and then you see, all this testimony. And then my brain started to click like, okay, well, what are they talking about? The violation of this. And then I was like, oh, okay, I need to go and try and do a little bit of research, which I did on my own to find out about all these statutes and what they were talking about in the hearing. And then from there, I was like, okay, if I'm going to be a lawyer, I need to know the statutes. And from there, that kind of pieced the tape for me, the pieces of puzzles about how that impacts everybody's lives.
Were your parents ever like, Angela, do you want to play softball? Would you like to be on a kickball team? Were they ever like, do you want some Barbie dolls to play with? Do they ever?
Dolls, and I still have some of them. I had dolls, and I would go outside and have a great time with, my brothers and my cousins. So, yeah.
You still had a normal, it's fun. You just were drawn to it. It was obviously
I was drawn to it, yeah. I was drawn to it. And then from that hearing, and you could see, like, the sparkle in my eye because I'm just thinking about it, Rebecca, but from that hearing, like, anytime there was a hearing, I wanted to watch. And I still do.
Well, I think that is a good prerequisite, though, for anyone listening who might have children who want to go into law. Be like, does this sound like a good Friday afternoon or whatever for you? Then maybe you're going sort of in the right direction. But I think you went in the ultimate direction. You heard all of your God callings were clear without any noise, and it seems like you definitely have been on sort of this timeline. So when was the first year you entered the House of Representatives?
I got elected in 2005 in a special election, and then the session started in 2006.
What were some of, not necessarily the bills and things, but what were some of the most standout moments of that first year? I mean, that you're new. I mean, is it everything you ever thought it would be? Was it not? What was that first year like?
So I didn't have any expectations in terms of, I think it's going to be like this, because I wanted to have an open mind about it. But the first year was absolutely spectacular in terms of how welcoming everyone was. It definitely was a bit of a learning curve, but I was up for it. I was really excited about it because I really wanted to get in there and learn. And I got my seat assignment first row, and I've been there ever since. And I really wanted to take that time because, as you know and you've seen, it's a lot of procedure involved. And I wanted to make sure that I had that down first. But from that first year, because when I first got elected, I was 27, 28.
Is that young? I mean, that would be considered young.
That would be considered young. But we have a colleague, Representative Jeremy Anderson. I mean, he got elected a lot younger. And so I think that's a testament to, again, if it's something that you're really passionate about. And I always tell students this when I'm going and visiting and talking. It doesn't matter if, it's the legislature. That was my passion. It could be something else.
Right.
Don't let the age or any obstacles get in your path. If it's something that you want to do, just really pursue it wholeheartedly.
Because then even if you don't get elected, it's a learning process and you get back up and you either try again or you find another route sort of within it. I love this idea, too, of just more women getting into politics here in Mississippi.
Definitely.
And beyond. Not that I am. Terrible for it. But I'm rooting for all those who choose it. And, you've been there for over, 16 years. You've seen more women sort of take on these particular roles. So what do you say to young girls who may be interested in law or interested in politics, going ahead and biting the bullet and stepping into the public servant role in the form of a legislator?
I say, Rebecca, just do it. Just go for it. I think, and I actually thought about this morning, how we have more women who are not just in the legislature, but also who are statewide officials, who are agency heads. And I think that is absolutely fantastic. Again, for me, the legislature was something that I wanted to do, but I definitely think in addition to the legislature, I would say plus the legislature, don't just stop at the legislature. Look at other ways in your community, or maybe there's a particular board that you want to serve on, because there are plenty of boards in the state. Look in those areas too, where you can serve. And if you don't speak up, if you don't apply, then no one will ever know what talents and what skills you bring to the table. I think sometimes we think, oh, well, I don't have this, and we start looking at all the things that we don't have. But what about all the things that we do have?
And I would say, too, anytime you've got that spark inside, because that's definitely not for everybody, because that would not be for me in that role. But if you have a spark inside for like just creating change in your own community, then you need to honor that. And
Exactly.
So that definitely can be school boards. That can be, well, when next we'll get into some of the other things outside that you actually get on, but like your local YMCA or your local food banks, or, your domestic violence shelters, which I know is another near and dear to your heart. These are all ways that you can make big impacts in your own community. You don't have to take it to that next level of being in the legislature, but you never know where that might where that might lead you.
You never know. And the reason why I say it that way is because someone that may not be what they want to do is serve in the legislature.
Right.
But there are definitely so many other areas to serve.
Absolutely, there are. And you do that as well for the last at least 2 decades as being a lawyer. You've been working in your community there in Amite County, and we're going to find out more about Miss Angela Cockerham coming up next. And we're exploring all the callings Representative Angela Cockerham has had to serve. Callings, not callings, however that came out differently, because you've definitely, I would say, answered the call to be of service to the public, but not just in the legislature. You've also connected your gifts and talents to other great organizations throughout your career. So what led you to some of those that you do serve with now?
So for the Mississippi Food Bank, for instance, we look at food insecurity, nationally throughout the state. And I wanted to make sure that, and I think the Mississippi Food Bank is one of those organizations that does an excellent job in making sure that that is addressed. And I wanted to serve on that board, just for those reasons. And the Y, for instance, is another board, the Metropolitan Y here that I serve on. And the Y is such a great organization. You know all about, their annual breakfast that they have for Thanksgiving and all the programs that they have. And they're all community oriented. And that's one of the many things that I love about the Y. So all of the boards that I serve on and have been blessed to have the opportunity to serve on, it's a great honor and a privilege because of the many ways that they give back to the community. And that's what I'm looking for, is to be able to give back.
And just help them be good stewards, too, with the resources that they have. That's what boards, are put there to do, is sort of help steer the ship, so to speak. And
exactly.
So, you mentioned there are different ways for all of us to get into our communities and serve. It doesn't always have to look like being, a voted-in legislator or whatnot. You can just be an active participant in the organizations that are doing the good, while you're off also doing another job or taking care of your family or whatever it may be. Now, it is October. We started off with that here on Good Things, the fact that you are passionate about Breast Cancer Awareness Month as well as domestic violence. I remember the pink and the purple. Mm-hmm. I hadn't thought of it that way, so I'm going to steal that one from you. So how does where's your connection with Breast Cancer Awareness Month?
So I've had family members, friends, who have had breast cancer. This is also a good time to remind everyone to make sure you're doing your own self-checks, make sure that you're going to your doctor to get your annual checks as well. But as you know, and our listeners know here on SuperTalk, this breast cancer is something that affects all of us. And if we detect it early, it's something that hopefully can save lives if we get the treatment early. And I'm so glad that, again, you and I are having our visit and we're able to talk to everyone in SuperTalk land and community, because this is a good time to remember, again, the pink and the purple. We talk here and I listen to your show about good things. While these are diseases and this is an abuse that, quite honestly, does affect a great number, not just here in the state, nationally, across the world, but if we talk preventively and we talk about all the education and the tools that we have available, not just here in the state of Mississippi, but nationally, hopefully it'll help not only save lives, but it can also help people to get treatment, especially in the case of domestic violence.
And I know, too, with our gentlemen friends who listen to Good Things, you'll hear me throughout this month, particularly October, to tell you this is your time to nudge the lady in your life, whether it's your mom, maybe awkward, but still your mom, your wife, or if you've got those that are of age now to get their mammograms or have it checked, ask them, have you checked your tatas? Because I love you and I want you around.
Ask, yes. Ask.
And so that is your piece to the pie here for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And two, I think all of ours, if you have an inkling of domestic violence, or if you know but don't want to get involved, there are resources to just bring the light into that conversation or into that relationship. And you just never know what your little bit of concern could be for either one of those, for sure.
So I do want to mention the Mississippi Coalition Against Domestic Violence. You know, you're familiar with them. You know that they do a fantastic job here in the state of Mississippi. I mean, it's a great resource. And then they're probably, I know for instance, in Wilkinson County on October the 23rd, we're going to have a walk for breast cancer awareness. And I'm sure there are going to be a lot of these walks across the state that we can participate in. So it's a good, and with the beautiful weather, Miss Rebecca, right? This is a great time to get out and walk. It's
the best time of year, I believe. And these are the best kind of conversations to have, is to get to know the people that are, in our legislature or in our communities, giving their all to making our places a little bit better. But what do you like to do for fun? I mean, I know public service is your calling and you're rocking it, Angela, but when Angela's not Representative Cockerham, what is she doing for fun? Please don't tell me watching depositions.
No, I am not doing that.
Or watching whatever.
No, I'm not watching depositions, trust me. I'm reading not anything legal related, nothing politics related, but just maybe like a good nonfiction book. I love to read nonfiction. I am watching maybe a good series on Netflix. I love to do that. And spending time with family. So that's about it. Looking for a way to relax is, for me, always, it's the simple things. It's not anything, I would say this, Rebecca, it's the simple and good things. It's not anything really big. It's just the quality time with others and just relaxing.
You shared a wonderful story during the break on Good Things of how a teacher led you to enjoying journaling. Do you remember which teacher that was?
Oh, definitely. Miss Rowana Allen from Liberty, Mississippi. It was 8th grade homeroom, and she had us journaling, before classes started. And I took that, and I still journal to this day. And it's helped me tremendously. And when I would get off the bus, I was like, I can't wait to get to homeroom because I love to write. And so I'm still taking that practice with me in my life today.
Do you think maybe one day we'll have author Angela Cockerham?
Prayerfully. I would love to do that. Prayerfully, yes.
And so maybe not now folks will be like, oh, she going to write a novel about the legislator. She got 16 years of juiciness that can be turned into fiction?
No, I don't know if I would write a book about the legislature. I don't know. Maybe a little bit would incorporate about the legislature, but not in its entirety. No.
I think they could make a Netflix series off of your interesting life. I think that'd be fun. You should write a memoir first.
Well, I should, but that's something I would really like to do.
Well, you know what? You are welcome back here anytime, whenever you have that released, for sure.
Well, thank you.
Well, you could definitely do that. And I think people want to keep up with you. And I think it's cool getting to know the people behind those that are serving. You've been serving for 16 years in District 96. For those of us who don't know what that means, other than Amite, because you shared that, who all is in your district?
It's Amite, Wilkinson, Pike, and Adams.
And so that's in Southwest Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
And we're always about always encouraging people to visit. You talked about the food and the love there, but can you give a shout out to maybe one or two local eats if we're going through that area that's just right up your alley?
So
she's been put on the spot, people, so it's not.
Well, and here's the thing. So there are a few. Here's what I would say. Come to Pike, come to Amite, come to Wilkinson, come to Adams. We've got great eateries, great restaurants all throughout. And if you call ahead, I may cook for you, okay? I may cook for you, or we may get...
So what's the Angela Cockerham special?
Okay. So you have time for this?
Yeah.
So I am perfecting my red beans and rice.
Well, that would be something worth getting around, having some conversation. What number are we on the recipe?
We're number 7.
Number 7. What's the key to good red beans and rice so far?
It's a secret.
Okay, I'm going to ask her, Rhino, and she said, do you stir your rice when you're cooking it, or you just let it sit and simmer?
No, I let it sit and simmer.
You're number 3.
Do you stir your rice?
Stop judging me. Yes, well, not anymore. Not everybody who knows what they're doing with rice has been like, stop stirring it. And I'm like, I'm listening to you, but I was trying to find one poor person that could figure out how to make good rice by stirring, and apparently it's not it. But where can we find you online? Where can we follow all that you're doing?
At Rep Cockerham on Twitter, Rep Cockerham on Facebook, and Rep Cockerham on Instagram.
Well, this has been a pleasure. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your service. And you guys stick with us. We got more for you coming up next.
Thank you, Rebecca.